Such stuff as dreams are made on, misquoted up to this point as such stuff as dreams are made of. So I apologize to Will Shakespeare and to all of you who are followers of Will Shakespeare for my misquotation. Such stuff as dreams are made on. What are dreams made on? And what relationship does this have to so-called real life? The word dreams is often used metaphorically and loosely to mean ambitions, hopes, desires. But what I want to talk about this morning is the base meaning of the word, the little movies that play in our heads while we sleep. Do dreams have any connection to the rest of our lives? Are they just the random firings of the neural circuits, the brain's way of letting off steam? Or are they a pathway into deeper truths about the world or about ourselves that is hidden from our normal consciousness? Or are they a completely different level of reality to the point that we don't know whether we are Chang Cho dreaming he is a butterfly or a butterfly dreaming he is Chang Cho? On that last score, I really have never had much doubt while awake that I am awake. Sometimes in dreams I question whether I am dreaming, but my waking self is pretty clear on what is a dream and what is not. It is my waking self that is talking to you now. I know this, because if I was dreaming this sermon, I wouldn't have my clothes on, or my text would be in Russian characters. In our Sunday afternoon book study, we are reading a book called A Religion of One's Own by psychotherapist and religion scholar Thomas More, whose previous book, Care of the Soul, was a bestseller a decade ago. More is a devotee of Carl Jung, and like Jung, places great store in the dreams of his patients. He claims that dreams contain real religious insights. Quote, working with dreams belongs in a religion of one's own because dreams are a vehicle of transcendence, a means of going beyond the self and yet within the soul. They are an open window allowing fresh information to enter from elsewhere. The dream realm is like a dark, narrow passageway with curtains at each end. They connect the world of myth, another and related language of the soul, that is the land of the soul, with the day world. The curtains don't open wide, so we only glimpse the two connected realms, but glimpses are always useful, unquote. Moore is an Irish American who spent 13 years in a monastery when he was younger. Here he is using language similar to that I used last Sunday to describe the Celtic holiday of Samhain, where the pagan Celts felt that the veil between this world and the spirit world was thinnest at the time of their New Year, what we now call Halloween. But Moore is not necessarily asserting that a spirit world exists. The curtains he is talking about might be hiding something deeper in our own souls. Now, I'm grateful that some of you responded to my invitation to share your dreams with me for this sermon. And it is always a bit of a problem to preach on dreams because the chances are that someone among you is going to take this as an excuse to do a lab course on me right here. I had a great minister at Harvard, Peter Gomes, from right here in Plymouth, who once told the state legislature, well, the next 20 minutes, my job is to talk, and your job is to listen. And if you finish your job before I finish my job, please take care not to snore too loud. At any rate, here's a dream from one of you. When I was in grade school, I had a lot of dreams about ice skating and roller skating. One in particular was vivid and recurred frequently. I was pushing along on roller skates in a vast roller rink. As I skated in a counterclockwise direction, the rink, shaped like an LP disc, seemed to expand into the outer universe. The surface on which I skated grew enormous, and I was flung out into dark, limitless space. Isn't this a wonderful dream? It combines two of this child's favorite things, music and skating. The music is contained on the phonograph records, which the child plays endlessly at home, a peak experience, and which also plays at the skating rink, at which she skates on Saturday mornings, another peak experience. The skaters move around the rink much as the record moves around on the turntable. However, the record on the phonograph turns clockwise, and in her dream, this dream is very specifically going counterclockwise. Is she going against the other skaters, making her own way in the world, moving against the current? She wants to cross the bounds of finitude and skate off into infinite space. There's no limit to what this child can do in her life. Here's another dream from one of you. Last night, I dreamed that I was having a happy time with my grown children and significant others in Maine. A trip to the summer theater and an overnight at a pleasant and expensive B&B. After the theater, a happy comedy, we all returned to the B&B, laughing and happy. Suddenly I realized that I didn't have my money with me, and I was hosting the affair. Therefore, I needed to go home for it, but I had no car. My Scott partner of my daughter had brought a beat-up bike with him, and I decided that would be my means of transportation to get my money. The owner of the B&B explained that I would have to climb a steep hill before I could catch the road home, and it was nighttime. I set off with the bike and had to push it up a long hill. Traffic was heavy, so I took a sidewalk that was overgrown with weeds and grass. Finally, I got to the top of the hill, which looked down on a large city, with the road equally steep on the way down. I then realized that the bike had no brakes. End of dream. Now, where the first dream was a child's dream, where possibilities for future happiness are unbounded, this is a mature person's dream about the happiness of the moment getting thwarted by unexpected obstacles. Danger rises up from beneath the surface of the good time the dreamer is having with his family, and embarrassment, sweat, physical harm loom in the future. This is a worry dream. Life is complicated, and things can go wrong in 1,000 ways. I really resonate with the worry about being separated from one's wallet. I am a typical man. I've been told that carrying my wallet in my back pocket is bad for my posture. But I carry it there anyway, because I know I have it. The embarrassment of having to pay for something with a missing wallet is more acute than any spine problems I might suffer from carrying it in my back pocket. I got a similar dream from one of you who regularly plans a social event at the church. You were attending another social event in your dream, and there was no coffee. At the time you had this dream, it was on your to-do list to call Ralph to make sure the coffee was set up for the event you were planning. This kind of relationship between the dream and the real world seems almost mechanical. The dream was just an extra alarm, reminding you of the item on your to-do list. Isn't it funny how the metaphorical meaning of the word dream is something we aspire to, something good, like the woman of my dreams, or the dream job, or the dream team. But what we actually dream about while we're sleeping at night are often things we want to avoid. I have a hunch that this gets more true as we get older, but then I also remember having some pretty bad dreams when I was young. But dreams can also be deep. Thomas More thinks dreams are a kind of subconscious archaeology. Quote, just as the earth has visible memories of geologic times, we too are structured in a deep way by events either far in the past or deep in our nature. It's sometimes difficult to distinguish between what is essential and what is remembered. You may dream about a crucial moment in your childhood when you got lost in the woods. The dream is about that memory, of course, but it also may call to you to mind other, more recent times when you have felt lost in the metaphorical forest of business deals or worries about raising a family. Dreams seem to unite these different strata, placing you in situations so familiar that they seem innate to your being. So when you look at your dream, you may be discovering the psycho-spiritual fault lines and drifting places, ancient aspects of your soul that account for some of your achievements and difficulties, your joys and pains, unquote. A couple of days ago, I dreamed I was in my car and David Adams was in the passenger seat. Now, David Adams was a lawyer in Charleston who started out in the prosecutor's office when I was in the public defender. And we had cases against each other, some of which went to trial, if my memory serves me. Later, we both went into private practice, and I had very little to do with him. We were at best nodding acquaintances from about 1978 on. What was he doing in my dream? And I don't remember where David had been going in my car. All I remember is that at some point I was trying to let him out, but I stopped alongside an embankment which came right down to the roadside, and it was difficult for him to get the passenger door open. So I was rude to my passenger in the place I let him out. As I reflect on this dream, I realize that I carry a great load of guilt for all the peripheral figures in my social world, that I haven't gotten to know them better. I have 20 years worth of friends from my Charleston period that I don't keep up with, and I have 12 years of friends from my Boston years that I don't keep up with. I have no idea whatever happened to David Adams, but I also have no idea what happened to thousands of other people that I once knew. Reason says, sometimes you see them on Facebook, of course. Reason says that you can't keep the same set of friends over time, particularly when you move from South Carolina to New England. But reason holds little sway over the desires of the heart. And if I had a list of all the thousands of people who have figured in my life, and could choose with whom to spend time in my dreams, it must be said that David Adams would rank rather low. But we can't choose. Thomas More quotes the novelist Michael Odantache, "There is the hidden presence of others in us, even those we have known briefly. We contain them for the rest of our lives, at every border that we cross." One of you sent me a deep pair of dreams. My marriage was breaking up after 35 years, after many children and grandchildren. I was devastated. I went to bed crying myself to sleep. During the night, I had a dream that I was in a motorized light scooter and was zooming around a lake. Suddenly, a big frog with bulging eyes came swimming beside me. My first thought was, "Oh, he is so ugly." And then a voice inside said, "He is your guide. Be nice to him." The dreamer said that the next morning she awoke feeling much better, and remembering the dream, looked in her Native American dictionary for frog. Frog stood for a new life. She said, "This made me feel excited in a way and not so completely upset. As it turned out, I'm having a wonderful new life and much happier than in my marriage years." The same person then related another dream from this week. I was in an old house. One of my daughters was there, along with my former husband, mother-in-law, and brother-in-law. I kept finding water leaks and was trying to stop the water with duct tape. My husband congratulated me on finding them and fixing them. I said I'd always been a Girl Scout. As the dream ended, a friend brought a present for my mother-in-law. The dreamer evaluates the dream this way. I'm still trying to figure this dream out. Water stands for energy, or spirit, as Thomas More would say. All of the people in this dream went forward in life, accomplished a great deal, but didn't think much of their actions. They were never ones to look back. Am I wasting my energy in little ways? What can I learn from the people in this dream? My mother-in-law received a present. What does that mean? Somehow I feel this dream has much to teach me, and I'm trying to work it out, but I have a long way to go. Most of us will have no problem accepting that our dreams can tell us a lot about our feelings about people who have been close to us. feelings that we may not want to recognize in our conscious minds. My own take is that human psyche deals with a psychic trauma such as a death or divorce in a way similar to the way the body deals with physical trauma. If possible, the immune system is rallied to repel the foreign invader, and then the healing begins with the formation of a scab to stop the blood flow, and then new skin grows over and a scar can form. Over time, perhaps the scar fades. In the soul, the scar tissue is composed of memory. While the traumatic event is fresh, its memory is ever present, and you may live in a state of constant anxiety. But you can't live that way perpetually. And at some point you get used to the new reality. And then the memory of the traumatic event starts to fade. There's a healing amnesia, which is natural, which protects your mental balance today by cutting off access to the full force of the emotions of past trauma. But these emotions can leak out in dreams, usually in thick disguises. Now, this idea of mine may be right or it may be wrong. It's a little like Freud's idea of repression. Freud thought we had these drives to sex and to dominance which must be repressed if we are to live in social units. Freud thought that in the course of development, we each learn to repress these desires of the id. The superego does the repressing, and the ego mediates between the superego and the id. So a boy's first sexual desire is for his mother. And men grow up with an Oedipus complex, where they are rivals with their father for the affection of their mother. The id wants to kill the father, to have the mother all to themselves. This makes a certain amount of sense. In my own life, my father died by his own hand, but he had entertained the idea of becoming a minister, and my mother adored ministers. So when I went into the ministry, I was in fact besting him in a rivalry that existed at least in the deep recesses of my own mind. And it was no coincidence that I was ordained on my mother's 80th birthday, and that my mother's favorite Episcopal minister participated. 3 years later, I even fulfilled the ultimate Oedipal dream. I married my mother to her third husband. Jung, on the other hand, felt that the unconscious part of our minds were not just blind instinct, but might be in communion with a collective unconscious, somewhat like Emerson's idea of the oversoul. Dreams, in Jung's scheme, are a portal into a larger external reality, but one which is glimpsed only in part. So can dreams actually predict what happens in real life? One of you told me about a good friend in a distant city who unexpectedly was not available for a visit when you came to visit. That night you had a dream about that friend, and the next day the friend died. In 2009, my sister-in-law went to New Hampshire to be with her 105-year-old mother in her last illness. She sat up with her in the room at the nursing home all night, and then her brother came to relieve her in the morning. She went to her brother's house and lay down in the guest bedroom to take a nap. There was no clock in the room. During her nap, she had a vivid dream that she was in that room and it was a stormy day outside. But at a certain point, the storm abruptly ceased and the sun came out. In her dream, she looked at the clock. Now, there was no real clock in the real room, but in her dream there was. She looked at the clock and it said 12:35. She kept on sleeping until her sister-in-law woke her up to go back to the nursing home a few miles away. When they got there, she learned that her mother had died peacefully, exactly 12:35. Are dreams evidence of other ways of knowing than our five senses? Or are the prediction dreams, where the dream matches something in waking reality, just a statistical chance, where we forget the thousands of things we dream about that don't match waking reality and remember only the 1 in 1,000 that does? We are such stuff as dreams are made of. Prospero says this in The Tempest at the end of a play within a play, which could be seen as just an exercise in fantasy, but in the play it actually does some work in changing the hearts of the characters, just as a play within a play in Hamlet does some work in confirming Hamlet's suspicions about the guilt of his uncle in the death of his father. What is the stuff that dreams are made on? It is the stuff of our lives, our history, our loves. It is that which we are most scared of, and that which we have loved most, and a lot of random people, places, and events that we thought were long buried in the past. For there are more things on heaven and earth than are dreamed of in our poor philosophy. Dreams at least give us flickering, glancing, momentary illumination of this great mystery that lies between our ears. Amen. Now let there